Hi everybody! I am here today to talk about probably one of the hottest topics in nutrition right now, which is plant-based diets. So I want to start with the nomenclature, this term plant-based diet. So what was once, not that long ago, referred to commonly as veganism, and generally kind of a fringe diet, political type of movement, has suddenly co-opted the phrase plant-based. And I take issue with this, to be honest. I take kind of a lot of issues with this. First and foremost, this is just kind of maybe petty, but as a dietitian that has always promoted real, unprocessed, anthropologically proven, logical diets, I feel like the word plant has kind of been stolen from me. I remember a talk that I wrote almost 10 years ago that had a slide that said, eat more plants. And then I went on to explain what that meant and whatnot. But was that a talk about going vegetarian or vegan? No, absolutely not. It was a talk about having a balanced diet that includes all of the foods that humans need to thrive and to get all the vitamins and minerals that we need. Animal foods being some of them, and plants being a big part of them. Any dietitian worth their salt has been promoting the right plants prepared the right way forever. So the idea that plant-based suddenly means veganism and avoiding all animal products is just, they should be calling it the anti-animal diet, not the plant-based diet. But virtually everything I've clicked on or read in the last year that is labeled plant-based is just a thinly veiled name meaning vegan. So, nomenclature aside, my second big issue with it is I feel like this term plant-based is this like new, sexy, healthy, health halo connotation, and it's really hoodwinked a lot of people into a diet that is absolutely unproven, illogical, and straight up nutrient deficient. Animal foods have always and always will be an integral part of the human diet. Just a short list of things that you really can't get from plants alone: B12, creatine, carnosine, DHA, the heme form of iron, taurine. I mean, there's a myriad of nutrients that are either completely unavailable in plants or not really available in the amounts that you would truly need in plants. And, if you look at vegan literature, they'll usually right off the bat say you'll probably need B12 supplements. You might need to find ways to get like protein powders, and they're kind of admitting that it's not actually a feasible long-term diet. And when you talk to people who used to be vegan, a lot of times what they'll tell you is the reason they stopped is they just were craving meat. It was like their body was telling them, I need more, this isn't cutting it. And maybe, it's often fine for a little while because many of these nutrients can be stored. So someone can avoid animal products for a couple months, maybe even a couple of years, maybe, without feeling too many of the ill side effects, but they're hit like a wall where their body is like begging them to get these nutrients that they're deficient in now that they've given up the only sources of them, which is animal food. And this is great news for the fake meat industry and all these Beyond Beef and wacky fake meats, because these people are craving meat, and so they go for these fake plant-based meats that don't actually satisfy their body's craving. So they keep craving it, and then they keep buying these fake meats. It's a brilliant business model on the part of the companies making these fake meats, but is it healthy? Is it improving the people's nutrient density? No, it's not. It's a sales thing, really. And truly, very few people last super long on a vegan diet, partly because just like any really extreme diet, it's just not sustainable, but partly because their bodies start to need and demand more nutrients. And so this brings up an interesting point, and one that I think is really relevant, especially to a lot of my audience, which is that there is no history of a society that has been vegan. There's not really a ton of even vegetarian, but there's some vegetarian where they're having dairy and eggs, and certainly maybe some societies that have done fish. But vegan with no animal products, no historical example of a society that has lived this way. And to my knowledge, there is no historical example of a woman who was born, fed a vegan diet for her whole life, got pregnant naturally, gave birth to a baby, then raised that baby vegan, and then that baby was fertile. And the reason I bring up that chain of events, specifically with fertility, is I strongly doubt that's even possible. Animal products play a major role in the growth and development of babies in utero and in their childhood. And they really have a big hormone role. And so I strongly doubt, now study hasn't been done, but I'm just not aware of even an anecdotal example of a 3-generation vegan situation. Not to mention a study that's been done. I think that there's maybe some misconception that there's been a lot of research on the health of vegan diets, and there most certainly has not. There's people doing it, but that's not a research study. There's not a clinical trial, especially not a long-term clinical trial where a child is raised vegan and grows into a vegan adult and tries to become pregnant, or there's just no research on this. So that's my second reason, just general health. And then my third issue with the term plant-based is I take issue with the broad use of the word plants. It's wrong to say that all plants are healthy and that all plants belong inside of our bodies. That's just not true. Frankly, I would argue that three plants in particular, are actually at the root of our modern health crisis. And those 3 plants are, wheat, soy, and corn. Wheat makes all of the refined bread we have, all of the super hyper palatable crackers and pizza crust and buns and breads. That's all wheat, and we've been eating this refined non-whole grain wheat to excess for a while now in our society. Corn is at the root of sugar, right? So when we had to get sugar from sugarcane, it was expensive and people couldn't have that much of it. They couldn't afford that much of it. But once we figured out how to make sugar out of corn, I'm not even really arguing that corn sugar is less healthy than cane sugar. I'm just arguing that it's cheap. And because it's so cheap, companies put it in so many more things. So corn is probably, if I had to pick one, at the root of the biggest issues with our health. And then soy is really just at the root of so much processed food. It's made it so that we can derive all of these substances that just are not really intended for the human diet. And it's at the root of soybean oil and margarine and all of these hydrogenated and high omega-6 fatty acids that are inflammatory, which is at the root of so many diseases that we have today, this high inflammation level. So yeah, corn, soy, and wheat, 3 plant-based foods, I would argue, are the biggest problems out there. So, what's the verdict here? Obviously, if you've been following my accounts for a while, you know that I've never really been promoting vegan diets, and with sexy name or not, I do not recommend plant-based diets. But I hope that you realize that doesn't mean I don't recommend vegetables. And in the right circumstances, fruits and nuts and seeds and whole grains. I'm not saying that these foods are not appropriate. I just don't believe, based on science, that they can be nourishing enough to sustain human life in the long term. It's all about the balanced diet. Yeah, make half your plate vegetables, make 3/4 of your plate vegetables, but we've got to have a little bit of animal food in there to keep you going in the long term. All right, have a good night, everybody.